Let's be honest, if you've been feeling a little overwhelmed by the news lately, you're definitely not alone. But what if the story we're all constantly hearing is missing a huge piece of the puzzle? Today, we're going to look at the data and tell a different kind of story. What actually went right in 2025? It's almost a reflex now, isn't it? Doom scrolling, that endless feed of bad news. Well, it's designed to keep you glued to your screen, but it can make you feel like progress is totally impossible, like your own efforts are just a drop in the ocean. It's a really heavy weight, and I think it's designed to make us feel pretty powerless. Well, here's the thing. The full story isn't in the headlines. See, underneath all that day-to-day noise, there's this powerful, data-driven story of progress that's been quietly unfolding. You just have to know where to look. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now. To really see this bigger picture, we've got to zoom out. And I don't just mean past this week's news. I mean past this decades, and look at the hard numbers. Let's start with one of humanity's oldest and biggest fights, the one against poverty. Just look at this transformation. Seriously, take it in. In just a little over 30 years, we've gone from a world where almost half of humanity lived in extreme poverty to a world where that number is down to just 10%. Now, this isn't some small adjustment. It's one of the most incredible, underreported success stories in all of human history. We're talking about billions of lives changed for the better. And that progress, it extends to the most vulnerable among us. A 62% drop in child mortality. Think for a second about what that number actually means. It's millions of children who got to grow up because of decades of quiet, determined work. Things like improving access to vaccines, basic nutrition, and healthcare. It is, and this is no exaggeration, one of the greatest humanitarian achievements of our time. Okay, so this next one might feel a little counterintuitive, especially given the headlines we see, but the data here is crystal clear. When you actually measure conflict deaths per person, our world today is way less deadly than it was in the mid-20th century. Now, that doesn't mean the conflicts we see aren't real and tragic. They absolutely are. But the long-term global trend has been a steady move away from huge, large-scale wars. So that's the long view, right? That's the historical foundation of progress. Now let's zoom back in. How did all these big trends actually show up in the real world this past year? Well, 2025 was packed with some really specific breakthroughs that are building on that very foundation. For our planet, 2025 was a huge year. We saw major wins on so many fronts. From the historic Global Ocean Treaty creating these massive marine sanctuaries to the incredible comeback story of the green turtle. But you know, maybe the biggest milestone of all was in our energy system. For the very first time in history, wind and solar became the world's #1 source of electricity. That signals a massive shift in how we power our lives. This progress wasn't just environmental, though. There was this one headline that I think captured the spirit of 2025's medical breakthroughs perfectly. It said that scientists are now treating what was once considered untreatable. I mean, what was basically science fiction just a few years ago is now becoming a real clinical reality for patients. Just look at this list for a second. We're talking about gene therapy that dramatically slows a devastating disease like Huntington's, a living drug that can actually reverse blood cancers in children that we couldn't treat before, the ability to spot diseases like pancreatic cancer early enough to actually do something about it, and even the first steps toward creating universal donor organs. You see, these aren't just small improvements. They are fundamentally changing the future of our health. And that amazing spirit of ingenuity, it literally reached beyond our planet. India especially had an incredible year in space. From mastering these really complex maneuvers like in-space docking, all the way to sending its first astronaut to the ISS, 2025 really showed the world that India has arrived as a major power in space exploration. It's just a powerful reminder that this kind of progress and ambition is happening all across the globe. Okay, so seeing all this good news is one thing, but what do we do with it, you know? How do we turn this awareness into something that actually helps us fight that feeling of helplessness we started with? Well, the answer is to kind of reframe how we think about hope itself. So what is hope, really? Because it's not just this passive, fingers-crossed kind of optimism. It's an active, practical mindset. Think of it like a tool. It's the tool that helps us see the evidence of progress we've just been talking about. And it's the fuel for all the small, consistent actions that, when you add them all together, create massive change. So how do we actively build this muscle? Here are 4 simple, practical steps. First, remember the history we just covered, that long-term data proves that progress is real. Second, start a small ritual.
Maybe just write down 3 good things you notice in the world each week. Third, intentionally rest. Give yourself a break from the 24/7 news cycle to recharge. And finally, and this one's the most important, take that informed hope and turn it into real, tangible action.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? It's not about you or me solving all the world's problems alone. It's about realizing that our small, collective actions are exactly what's driven all the progress we've seen so far. It's about doing your part. So, the big takeaway here is this: the challenges we face are absolutely real, but so is progress. The story of what's going right is just as true and just as powerful as the story of what's going wrong. It's a story of human ingenuity. It's a story of resilience. And the only question left is the one right here on the screen. What will your next step be?